The humiliation at Sunday dinner still burned in my chest as I stared at my laptop screen. My sister Sarah had just announced she was buying a second rental property while I sat there like some charity case who had been paying her $3,400 monthly rent for 2 years. Dad nodded approvingly at her success while dismissing my dreams of homeownership, but they had no idea what I had been quietly building. Tomorrow, everything would change, and Sarah would learn that underestimating me was her biggest mistake. I should have known Sunday dinner would turn into another session of Sarah's victory lap around my supposed failures. The moment I walked into Mom and Dad's ranch house in suburban Denver, I could feel the familiar knot forming in my stomach. Sarah's new BMW gleamed in the driveway next to my modest Honda Civic, a visual reminder of our supposed different stations in life. "Freddie, you're late," Mom called from the kitchen, her tone carrying that hint of disappointment I had grown accustomed to over the years. Sarah's been here for an hour already, sharing her exciting news. I hung my jacket on the coat rack and forced a smile. At 28, I still felt like the family disappointment whenever I stepped through that door. Sorry, traffic was heavy coming from downtown. Still living in that concrete jungle, Dad muttered from his recliner, not bothering to look up from his newspaper. "When are you going to move somewhere decent like your sister?" Sarah emerged from the kitchen, perfectly dressed in designer clothes that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Her smile had that practiced warmth that never quite reached her eyes. "Hey, little brother, how's the apartment treating you? Still happy with your cozy little rental?" There it was, the subtle dig wrapped in false concern. Sarah had perfected this art over the years, making her condescension sound like sisterly care. "It's fine, comfortable, and affordable." "Affordable?" she repeated with a laugh. "Well, I suppose $3,400 a month is reasonable for downtown living, though I have to say, watching you throw away that much money every month on rent makes me grateful I invested in real estate early." Dad finally looked up from his paper. Sarah was just telling us about her new acquisition, another rental property in Boulder. "What was the price again, sweetheart?" Sarah's chest puffed with pride. $450,000. It's a gorgeous duplex just 5 minutes from the University of Colorado campus. Student housing is incredibly lucrative. I should clear at least $4,000 monthly in rental income after expenses. "That's wonderful," Mom gushed, setting down serving dishes filled with pot roast and vegetables. "2 rental properties before you turn 30. We're so proud of your business sense." I took my usual seat at the dining table, the one that somehow always felt like the kids' chair, even though we were all adults now. "Congratulations, Sarah. That sounds like a solid investment." "Thank you," she said, settling gracefully into her chair. "You know, Freddie, maybe someday you'll be ready to think about property ownership too. Though honestly, I worry about whether you have the financial discipline for something that complex." The words hit like a slap, but I kept my expression neutral. "What do you mean?" Dad carved the roast with unnecessary force. "She means, homeownership requires responsibility, son. Planning, saving, understanding market dynamics. It's not for everyone. Some people are just better suited to renting," Sarah added, reaching for the dinner rolls. "There's no shame in knowing your limitations. Besides, you're helping fund my success every month with your rent payments. Think of it as contributing to the family's overall wealth building." My hands clenched under the table. For 2 years, I had been paying Sarah $3,400 monthly to live in what she claimed was her rental property downtown. She positioned it as a family favor, charging me supposedly below market rates while building her real estate portfolio. Now she was essentially telling our parents that my money was funding her investments. "The rental market has been incredibly good to Sarah," Mom said, beaming at her daughter. "She's shown such wisdom in her choices. Unlike some people," Dad added pointedly. "Still working that tech support job, Freddie? When are you going to find something with real advancement potential?" I pushed food around my plate, fighting the urge to defend myself. They had no idea that my IT job was just one source of income, or that I had been building something much bigger on the side. "The job pays well and keeps me busy." Sarah laughed, the sound sharp and dismissive. "Busy enough to afford downtown rent, I suppose. Though, honestly, Freddie, sometimes I wonder if you'll ever own property." Real estate requires vision, commitment, long-term thinking. You've always been more of a day-to-day kind of person. You'll never own property, she continued, taking a sip of wine. And that's probably for the best. Stick to renting forever. Leave the complex financial decisions to people who understand them. Dad nodded approvingly. Sarah's right. Some people are natural entrepreneurs. Others are natural employees. Nothing wrong with knowing which category you fall into. The conversation continued around me as they discussed Sarah's business expansion plans, her networking with other real estate investors, her sophisticated understanding of market trends. I sat there quietly, absorbing their dismissal, their assumption that I would never amount to anything significant. You're probably right, I finally said when Sarah made another comment about my lack of property ownership potential. The words tasted bitter, but I had learned long ago that arguing only made family dinners more uncomfortable. As dessert was served, Sarah made sure to remind me that rent was due Tuesday, as always. I hope you're keeping track of your payment schedule. I know managing finances can be challenging for some people. I nodded and smiled, thanking her for her patience with my supposed financial inadequacies. Inside, my anger was building to a breaking point. They treated me like a child, like someone incapable of understanding basic money management. If only they knew what I had been quietly building while they dismissed my potential. The evening ended with hugs and promises to see each other next Sunday. As I drove home through Denver's darkening streets, I made a decision. Tomorrow morning, I would make a phone call that would change everything. Sarah wanted to play games with my money and mock my prospects? Fine. She was about to learn that underestimating me was the biggest mistake of her life. But first, I needed to uncover exactly what kind of game she had been playing with my rent payments for the past 2 years. Something about her smug confidence tonight felt different, and I intended to find out why. I pulled into my apartment building's parking garage and sat in my car for a moment, letting the rage from dinner settle into cold determination. Sarah and my parents thought they knew who I was, thought they understood my capabilities and limitations. They were about to discover how wrong they had been. My apartment was modest but comfortable, a one-bedroom unit in Denver's trendy Reno district that Sarah had positioned as her generous gift to family. Walking through the door, I headed straight to my home office setup in the corner of the living room. Multiple monitors glowed to life as I powered up my equipment, revealing the secret world I had been building for the past 3 years. The business started almost by accident. My IT support job at a mid-sized consulting firm paid decent money, around $65,000 annually, but I had always been drawn to web development. Evenings and weekends found me teaching myself advanced coding, studying design principles, learning about search engine optimization, and digital marketing. What began as a hobby slowly evolved into freelance projects for small businesses around Colorado. My first client had been a local bakery, whose website looked like it was designed in 1998. The owner, desperate to compete with chain stores, paid me $2,000 to create something modern and mobile-friendly. Word spread through Denver's small business community, and soon I was fielding requests from restaurants, retail shops, service companies, and professional practices. 3 years later, Freddie's Web Solutions generated over $12,000 monthly in revenue, far exceeding my day job salary. I worked 60-hour weeks between my regular employment and freelance projects, but the financial results spoke for themselves. While Sarah thought she was collecting rent from her struggling younger brother, I was actually building a business empire that dwarfed her real estate ventures. Opening my primary savings account, I stared at the balance that represented years of disciplined financial planning, $180,000 in cash. Every month, I deposited the majority of my freelance income while living off my IT salary and minimizing expenses. The irony wasn't lost on me that Sarah's expensive rent had actually motivated me to earn more, pushing me toward financial success while she assumed I was barely scraping by. My secondary monitor displayed pre-approval letters from 3 different mortgage lenders. With my excellent credit score of 820 and substantial down payment capacity, I qualified for conventional loans up to $500,000. For months, I had been secretly shopping properties, working with a real estate agent who understood my desire for discretion. The documents folder on my desktop contained detailed analyses of 12 different properties I had considered purchasing. 3 stood out as perfect investments: a renovated Victorian in the Highlands neighborhood, a modern townhouse near the Denver Art Museum, and a craftsman-style bungalow in Berkeley that needed minor cosmetic updates. Each property offered better value and location than anything in Sarah's portfolio. My phone buzzed with a text message from Jessica, though my family had no idea she existed. We had been dating for 8 months, keeping our relationship private while I navigated family dynamics and business growth. Jessica worked as a real estate attorney for a prestigious downtown firm, and her legal expertise had been invaluable in understanding property markets and investment strategies. "How was dinner with the family?" her message read. "About what I expected," I typed back. Sarah announced her Boulder duplex purchase and reminded everyone that I'll never own property. Perfect timing then. "Are you ready to move forward with your plan?" I smiled at her message. Jessica knew about my business success and had been encouraging me to stop hiding my accomplishments from my family. She understood the psychological games Sarah played and had helped me develop a strategy for revealing the truth in the most effective way possible. "Tomorrow morning," I confirmed. "Time to make some phone calls." Before starting this process, I wanted to review my business projections one more time. My client base had grown to 37 active accounts, ranging from simple website maintenance to complex e-commerce platforms. Monthly recurring revenue provided steady income, while new project development offered growth potential. Conservative estimates suggested I could reach 15,000 monthly by year-end, assuming continued market expansion. The contrast between my actual financial position and my family's perception was staggering. While they saw a struggling tech support worker barely affording overpriced rent, I was actually a successful entrepreneur with substantial assets and unlimited growth potential. Sarah's condescending comments about my lack of financial discipline were particularly ironic given that I had been subsidizing her lifestyle for 2 years. But something about tonight's dinner had felt different. Sarah's confidence seemed forced, her bragging more desperate than usual. Her comments about my rent payments funding her investments carried an edge I hadn't noticed before. Combined with some unusual paperwork discrepancies I had observed recently, I was beginning to suspect that Sarah's real estate success might not be as legitimate as she claimed. Tomorrow would bring answers to questions I had been avoiding for too long. My family wanted to keep treating me like the disappointing younger son who would never amount to anything significant. Fine, let them maintain that illusion for one more night. But starting tomorrow morning, the truth would begin emerging, and Sarah would discover that playing games with my money while mocking my potential was about to cost her everything she thought she had built. I closed my laptop and headed to bed, already planning the phone calls that would change everything. Sarah thought she was so clever, collecting my rent while building her empire on my contributions. She had no idea that I had been documenting every transaction, every conversation, every assumption they made about my capabilities. The game was about to change, and this time, I would be the one setting the rules. Monday morning arrived gray and drizzly, typical November weather in Denver that matched my mood perfectly. I had spent the night reviewing documents and preparing for conversations that would either confirm my suspicions or put them to rest. Either way, I was done being Sarah's unknowing accomplice in whatever scheme she was running. My first call went to the Denver County Clerk's office, where public property records could answer basic questions about ownership. After navigating their automated system and waiting on hold for 12 minutes, I spoke with a clerk named Patricia, who helped me search for the property where I had been living. "The address you provided shows ownership under Chen Holdings LLC," Patricia explained. "Purchased in March 2021 for $320,000. No recorded transfers or sales since then." I felt my stomach drop. "Can you confirm the current owner's contact information?" "I can provide what's listed in public records. The registered agent is Margaret Chen, with a business address downtown. Would you like me to email you the complete filing information?" "Yes, please. And can you tell me if there are any liens or legal actions against this property?" Patricia's keyboard clicked rapidly in the background. "There are 2 recent filings, a notice of lease violation filed in September, and what appears to be preliminary eviction proceedings initiated last month, both filed by Chen Holdings against. Let me see. Sarah Martinez. Is that helpful? My hands were shaking as I wrote down the information. Sarah didn't own the property where I lived. She had been subletting it from the actual owner, who was now trying to evict her for lease violations. Everything my sister had told our family about her real estate success was built on lies. That's very helpful. Thank you. I immediately called the property management company listed in the county records. After explaining that I was a current tenant seeking clarification about my lease status, I was transferred to David Thompson, a senior property manager who seemed eager to discuss the situation. Mr. Martinez, I'm glad you called, David said. We've been trying to resolve issues with the unauthorized subletting of Unit 412 for several months now. Are you the tenant who's been sending monthly payments? Yes, I've been paying Sarah Martinez $3,400 monthly for 2 years. I was told she owned the property. David sighed heavily. I'm afraid Miss Martinez has been operating without authorization. She signed a standard rental lease with Mrs. Chen for $1,800 monthly, but the lease explicitly prohibits subletting without written consent. We've never received such a request. The numbers hit me like a physical blow. Sarah had been collecting $3,400 from me while paying only $1,800 to the actual owner, pocketing $2,600 monthly in pure profit. Over 2 years, she had stolen over $60,000 through this illegal arrangement. What's Mrs. Chen's position on the current situation? I asked. Mrs. Chen has been very patient, but she's reached her limit. Miss Martinez is currently 3 months behind on rent payments to us, which is why eviction proceedings have started. The unauthorized subletting violates multiple lease terms, and frankly, Mrs. Chen could have started legal action much sooner. I explained my situation as a tenant who had been paying rent in good faith, unaware of the illegal arrangement. David was surprisingly sympathetic and suggested a meeting with Mrs. Chen to discuss potential solutions. Would you be interested in signing a direct lease with Mrs. Chen? Your payment history suggests you're a reliable tenant, and she's expressed interest in working with responsible renters. The market rate for your unit would be around $2,800 monthly. I'd like to arrange that conversation, yes. But first, I need you to stop accepting any payments from Sarah Martinez, effective immediately. That's actually perfect timing, David replied. We weren't planning to accept any more payments from her anyway, given the eviction proceedings. Can I schedule you to meet with Mrs. Chen tomorrow afternoon? After confirming the appointment, I called Jessica to update her on the morning's discoveries. As a real estate attorney, she immediately grasped the legal implications of Sarah's scheme. Freddie, this is serious fraud, she said during our lunch meeting at a downtown cafe. Unauthorized subletting, collecting payments under false pretenses, potentially using fraudulent income documentation for mortgage applications. Sarah could face both civil and criminal liability. Jessica pulled out her tablet and began taking notes. We need to document everything. Your payment records, any written communications about the rental arrangement, evidence of her claims about property ownership. This isn't just about rent money anymore. What do you mean? Think about it. If Sarah has been lying about owning your rental property, what else might she be lying about? Her Boulder duplex deal, her other supposed real estate holdings, her income sources. I'd bet money she's been using your reliable rent payments as proof of income for mortgage applications. The implications were staggering. Sarah hadn't just been stealing my money. She had been using my financial reliability to build her entire fraudulent empire. Every mortgage application, every investment claim, every boast about her business acumen was potentially built on money stolen from me. I want to buy a house immediately, I told Jessica. Not just to get away from Sarah's scheme, but to demonstrate my actual financial position. Can you help me expedite a purchase? Jessica smiled. I know exactly the property. That Craftsman in Highland you've been considering just dropped to $390,000. The sellers are motivated, and with your cash position we could close within a week. Let's do it, I want to make an offer today. As we walked back to Jessica's office, I felt a strange combination of anger and liberation. Sarah's elaborate lies were about to unravel, but more importantly, I was finally ready to stop hiding my success. My family had spent years treating me like a financial failure, while I secretly built something they could never imagine. Tomorrow's meeting with Mrs. Chen would begin the process of extricating myself from Sarah's fraud. But tonight, I would start shopping for my first house, using the wealth I had accumulated, while my family assumed I was barely surviving. Sarah wanted to mock my prospects and dismiss my potential? Perfect. She was about to discover that underestimating me was the most expensive mistake of her life. And unlike her fraudulent real estate empire, my success was built on honest work and genuine financial discipline. The only question now was how long it would take for her entire web of lies to collapse completely. Tuesday morning, I sat in the offices of Mountain View Mortgage, facing loan officer Robert Kim across a mahogany desk cluttered with financial documents. After years of careful planning and saving, I was finally ready to make my move into property ownership, and I wanted to do it in the most decisive way possible. "Mr. Martinez, your financial profile is quite impressive," Robert said, reviewing my application materials. "Credit score of 820, substantial cash reserves, stable employment history, and significant additional income from your business ventures. You qualify for any loan product we offer." "Actually, I'd like to make a cash offer," I replied. "No financing needed." Robert's eyebrows rose slightly. "Cash offers certainly strengthen your negotiating position. What price range are you considering?" "400,000. I want to close as quickly as possible, ideally by Friday." Within 2 hours, Jessica and I were standing in the living room of the Craftsman house in Highland that I had been admiring for months. The property featured original hardwood floors, updated kitchen, and a backyard perfect for entertaining. More importantly, it was located in one of Denver's most desirable neighborhoods, making it both a great home and solid investment. The sellers listed at $390,000, explained our real estate agent, Mark. But they're motivated to close quickly due to a job relocation. Your cash offer at $400,000 would be very attractive. "Submit the offer," I said without hesitation. "Full cash, no contingencies, 10-day closing period." Jessica squeezed my hand. "Are you sure about this timeline? It's pretty aggressive." "I'm sure. I've been ready for this move for months. It's time to stop hiding what I've accomplished." While we waited for a response to the offer, my phone began ringing incessantly. Sarah's name appeared on the screen repeatedly, but I declined every call. She was undoubtedly panicking about her missing rent payment, but her crisis was no longer my responsibility. By 3 o'clock, we had an accepted offer. The sellers were thrilled with the cash terms and quick closing, exactly as Mark had predicted. I would own my first home by Friday afternoon, assuming the inspection and title work proceeded smoothly. "Congratulations," Jessica said, as we celebrated with coffee at a nearby cafe. "How does it feel to be a homeowner?" "Satisfying," I admitted, "but also overdue. I should have done this a year ago instead of enabling Sarah's fraud." My phone buzzed with another call from Sarah, which I again declined. Then came a text message. "Freddie, I need to talk to you urgently about rent. Please call me back immediately." "She's getting desperate," Jessica observed, reading the message over my shoulder. "Have you heard anything from the property manager about her situation?" As if summoned by her question, my phone rang with a call from David Thompson. "Mr. Martinez, I wanted to update you on this afternoon's developments. Miss Martinez came to our office, demanding to know why we weren't accepting her rent payment." "What did you tell her?" "I explained that her lease had been terminated due to multiple violations, and that we were working directly with the actual tenant going forward." She became quite agitated and threatened legal action against both our company and Mrs. Chen. This was escalating exactly as I had expected. Sarah's entire scheme was unraveling, and she was lashing out at everyone except the person actually responsible, herself. "Did she mention me specifically?" "She claimed you were behind some conspiracy to damage her business relationships. Frankly, Mr. Martinez, she seemed unstable." "Mrs. Chen asked me to recommend that you consider additional security measures if Miss Martinez knows where you work." The threat potential hadn't occurred to me, but it made sense. Sarah was facing the collapse of her fraudulent empire, and she undoubtedly blamed me for triggering the investigation. I made a mental note to discuss security concerns with my employer and building management. I appreciate the warning. Is Mrs. Chen still willing to meet tomorrow to discuss a direct lease arrangement? Actually, given the circumstances, she'd prefer to accelerate that timeline. Could you meet with her this evening? She's quite eager to resolve this situation cleanly. I agreed to the meeting, though I realized my housing situation had become mostly irrelevant. By Friday, I would own my own home and could move out of Sarah's fraudulent rental arrangement entirely. Still, maintaining good relationships with Mrs. Chen seemed wise, especially if Sarah's legal troubles intensified. The meeting with Mrs. Chen took place at a small restaurant near downtown, chosen for its privacy and neutral atmosphere. She turned out to be a soft-spoken woman in her 60s, who had been landlording for over 20 years. "Mr. Martinez, I want to apologize for the situation you've been placed in," she began. "I had no idea Miss Martinez was subletting my property without authorization, let alone at such inflated rates. I appreciate that, Mrs. Chen. I was operating in good faith based on information Sarah provided. Your payment history has been excellent, according to my records. Even though the payments were coming through Miss Martinez, they were always on time, and for the full amount. That kind of reliability is rare in rental properties." Mrs. Chen explained that Sarah owed her over $5,000 in back rent, having stopped making payments 3 months ago while continuing to collect money from me. The unauthorized subletting violated multiple lease terms, but Mrs. Chen had been hesitant to pursue legal action until the financial situation became untenable. "If you're interested in signing a direct lease, I'd be happy to work with you," she offered. $2,800 monthly, which is actually below current market rates for that neighborhood. "I'm honored by the offer," I replied carefully, "but my housing situation is about to change significantly. I've just purchased a home and will be moving out by early next week." Mrs. Chen looked surprised but pleased. "Congratulations. That's wonderful news. I hope Miss Martinez's deception didn't damage your plans or financial position. Actually, discovering her fraud motivated me to accelerate my home purchase timeline. Sometimes bad situations lead to positive outcomes." As we concluded our meeting, Mrs. Chen asked if I would be willing to provide a statement about Sarah's unauthorized activities for her legal proceedings. I agreed, knowing that documenting the truth would protect both of us from Sarah's increasingly desperate behavior. Driving home through Denver's evening traffic, I reflected on how rapidly my situation was improving. Within 1 week, I had exposed Sarah's fraud, secured my first house, and positioned myself to completely escape her schemes. Meanwhile, her entire fraudulent empire was collapsing under the weight of lies she could no longer maintain. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, as Sarah realized the full extent of her exposure, but tonight I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: genuine excitement about my future. For too long, I had hidden my success to avoid family conflict. Starting this week, I would stop apologizing for my accomplishments and start living the life I had earned through years of hard work and financial discipline. Sarah wanted to mock my potential and dismiss my dreams? Perfect. She was about to witness exactly what her little brother was capable of achieving. Wednesday morning brought news that Sarah's Boulder duplex deal had collapsed overnight. Jessica called me at work with updates from her contacts in the real estate community. "The mortgage lender discovered discrepancies in Sarah's income documentation," Jessica explained. "Apparently, she had been claiming rental income from properties she doesn't actually own, including the place where you've been living." I stepped away from my desk to take the call privately. "So they pulled her financing?" "More than that. They flagged her applications for potential fraud investigation. When lenders discover falsified income statements, they're required to report it to federal authorities. Sarah could be looking at serious criminal charges." The irony was staggering. Sarah had built her entire real estate empire on a foundation of lies, using my legitimate rent payments as proof of income she wasn't entitled to claim. Now that her schemes were unraveling, she faced losing everything she thought she had accomplished. My phone buzzed with an incoming call from Sarah, which I declined as usual. She had been calling constantly for 2 days, leaving increasingly frantic voicemails that I hadn't bothered to listen to. Whatever crisis she was experiencing was entirely self-inflicted. "There's more," Jessica continued. "I did some research on her other supposed rental properties. Two of the addresses she's claimed as income sources are actually owned by other people entirely. She's been submitting completely fabricated rental income claims to multiple lenders. How much fraud are we talking about? Potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in falsified income over the past 3 years. If she's been using these fake income claims to qualify for mortgages, credit cards, and business loans, the total exposure could be massive. I returned to my desk feeling a mixture of vindication and concern. Sarah had created this situation through her own dishonest choices, but the legal consequences were about to become very real. As her brother, I felt some obligation to warn her about what was coming, even though she had spent years treating me with condescension and disrespect. Around noon, David Thompson called with an update on the eviction proceedings. Mr. Martinez. Miss Martinez showed up at the property this morning with a locksmith, trying to change the locks. Mrs. Chen had to call the police to prevent her from entering illegally. Is everyone okay? Yes, but Miss Martinez was extremely agitated. She claimed that you and Mrs. Chen were conspiring to steal her property and destroy her business. The police informed her that she has no legal right to the property and could be arrested for trespassing if she returns. This was escalating beyond financial fraud into potentially dangerous behavior. Sarah was clearly desperate, and desperate people sometimes made dangerous decisions. I decided to increase security awareness at both my workplace and apartment building. Did she say anything specific about me? She blamed you for everything, claimed you had manipulated Mrs. Chen against her. Honestly, Mr. Martinez, she seemed to have lost touch with reality. I'd recommend avoiding any direct contact with her until this situation resolves legally. That afternoon, I received a surprise call from my mother. Freddie, Sarah, is very upset about something involving her rental property. She says you're not paying rent and are trying to damage her business relationships. What's going on? For a moment, I considered protecting Sarah by minimizing the situation. Family loyalty ran deep, and part of me wanted to avoid the drama that full disclosure would create. But Sarah had made her choices, and our parents deserved to understand the truth. Mom, Sarah doesn't actually own the property where I've been living. She's been subletting it illegally while claiming to be the owner. The real landlord is evicting her for fraud and lease violations. Silence stretched across the phone line. What do you mean she doesn't own it? I mean she's been lying to all of us for 2 years. She rents the place for $1,800 monthly but has been charging me $3,400, pocketing the difference illegally. She owes the real owner thousands in back rent. That can't be right. Sarah showed us the property documents when she first started renting to you. Those documents were probably falsified, Mom. The county records show the property is owned by Margaret Chen, not Sarah. Sarah has been running an elaborate fraud scheme using my rent payments. I could hear Mom struggling to process this information. Sarah had been the family success story, the daughter who demonstrated business acumen and financial wisdom. Learning that her achievements were built on criminal activity would be devastating for parents who had spent years praising her accomplishments. Where are you getting this information, Freddie? From the county clerk's office, the property management company, and the actual owner. I have documentation proving everything I'm telling you. This is very serious. Have you talked to Sarah about these accusations? Mom, they're not accusations. They're facts supported by public records and legal documents. Sarah has been committing fraud, and now she's facing the consequences. After we hung up, I felt emotionally drained but also relieved. For too long, I had enabled Sarah's deception through my silence. Now the truth was emerging, and my parents would have to confront the reality of what their favorite daughter had become. My phone rang again almost immediately. This time it was Dad, his voice tight with concern. Freddie, your mother told me about this situation with Sarah. I need to understand what's really happening here. I repeated the same information, providing Dad with specific details about the property ownership, the illegal subletting arrangement, and Sarah's fraudulent income claims to lenders. Unlike Mom, Dad immediately grasped the legal implications. How much money has she stolen from you? Over 2 years. Around $60,000 in overcharged rent, plus whatever financial damage her fraud might cause me personally. Jesus Christ. Freddie, why didn't you tell us about this sooner? I just discovered it myself this week. Sarah was very convincing in her claims about property ownership. I trusted her because she's family. Dad was quiet for a long moment. We need to have a family meeting to discuss this situation. Can you come over tomorrow evening? Of course. But Dad, you should know that Sarah's problems extend far beyond my rental situation. Her entire real estate portfolio appears to be built on fraudulent income claims. She could be facing federal criminal charges. I understand. We'll figure out how to handle this as a family. As evening approached, I realized that Sarah's world was collapsing much faster than I had anticipated. Her Boulder deal was dead, her illegal subletting scheme exposed, her mortgage applications flagged for fraud investigation, and now our parents were learning the truth about her deceptive practices. Part of me felt sorry for her, despite everything she had done. Sarah had created this crisis through her own choices, but watching anyone's life implode was inherently sad. However, my sympathy was tempered by the memory of Sunday's dinner conversation, when she had mocked my prospects and dismissed my potential while secretly stealing thousands of dollars from me monthly. Tomorrow's family meeting would be difficult for everyone involved. Our parents would struggle to accept that their successful daughter was actually a criminal, while Sarah would face confrontation about lies she had been maintaining for years. But for the first time in my adult life, I would enter that meeting from a position of strength rather than defensiveness. Sarah's fraudulent empire was crumbling, while my legitimate success was about to be revealed. The family dynamics that had oppressed me for years were about to change dramatically, and I was finally ready to claim the respect I had earned through honest work and genuine accomplishments. Thursday evening's emergency family meeting was scheduled for 6 o'clock, but I arrived early to find Sarah's BMW already in the driveway. Through the living room window, I could see her gesticulating wildly, while Mom and Dad listened with increasingly concerned expressions. I knocked and entered without waiting for an answer, immediately sensing the tension that filled the room like smoke. Sarah stopped talking the moment she saw me, her eyes blazing with an anger I had never witnessed before. "There he is," she spat. "The brother who's trying to destroy everything I've worked for." "Sarah," Dad warned, his voice carrying unusual authority. "Let's keep this civil." "Civil?" Sarah laughed bitterly. "He's been sabotaging my business relationships and spreading lies about my properties. Because of him, I lost the Boulder deal, and I'm facing eviction from a property I've been managing successfully for 2 years. I took a seat across from her, maintaining calm despite her hostility. "Sarah, you don't manage that property. You illegally sublet it while lying about ownership and stealing thousands of dollars monthly. That's complete nonsense. I own rental properties, and you're my tenant. The fact that I work with property management companies doesn't change the fundamentals of our arrangement." Mom looked confused and distressed. "Sarah, Freddie showed us county records indicating the property belongs to someone named Margaret Chen." "County records can be misleading," Sarah replied smoothly. "Real estate ownership involves complex legal structures. Just because Chen Holdings appears on some documents doesn't mean I don't have ownership interests." I pulled out my tablet and opened the folder containing documentation I had gathered over the past week. "Sarah, would you like to explain why you've been collecting $3,400 monthly from me while paying only $1,800 to the actual owner?" "I don't have to explain my business arrangements to you." "Actually, you do," Dad interjected. "If you're charging Freddie rent on a property you don't own, that sounds like fraud." Sarah's composure began cracking. "You don't understand how real estate investing works. There are holding companies, management agreements, profit-sharing arrangements. It's complicated." "It's not complicated," I replied calmly. "You signed a lease with Mrs. Chen for $1,800 monthly. The lease prohibits subletting. You violated that lease by renting to me for $3,400 monthly without authorization. You've been stealing $2,600 from me every month for 2 years. I haven't stolen anything. I provided you with housing and property management services. My fees are justified by the value I deliver." Jessica arrived precisely at 6:30, carrying a briefcase filled with legal documents. I had asked her to attend as both my attorney and witness, knowing that Sarah would likely continue denying obvious facts. "Who is this?" Sarah demanded. "Jessica Williams," she replied professionally. "I'm Freddie's attorney. I'm here to help clarify the legal situation everyone is discussing. Sarah's eyes narrowed. Freddie doesn't need an attorney. This is a family matter. Actually, Jessica said, settling into a chair, fraud and theft are legal matters regardless of family relationships. For the next hour, Jessica methodically presented evidence of Sarah's fraudulent activities. County property records, lease documents obtained from Mrs. Chen, documentation of Sarah's mortgage applications claiming false rental income, and records of the eviction proceedings initiated by the actual property owner. Mom and Dad listened in stunned silence as the scope of Sarah's deceptions became clear. She hadn't just lied about owning my rental property. She had been fabricating rental income from multiple non-existent sources to qualify for loans and credit cards. These documents show that Miss Martinez has been claiming over $12,000 monthly in rental income, Jessica explained. But she only owns one legitimate rental property that generates about $2,500 monthly after expenses. That's impossible, Dad said. Sarah, you told us about multiple properties, successful investment strategies, growing rental income streams. I do have multiple income sources, Sarah insisted, but her voice had lost its earlier confidence. Real estate investing involves complex financial instruments that lay people don't understand. Sarah, I said quietly, stop lying. It's over. The Boulder duplex deal collapsed because lenders discovered your fraudulent income claims. You're facing eviction from the property where I live because you owe thousands in back rent to the actual owner. Your entire real estate empire is built on lies. The fight seemed to drain out of her suddenly. Sarah's shoulders sagged, and tears began forming in her eyes. You don't understand the pressure I've been under. Everyone expects me to be successful, to have everything figured out. I made some mistakes, but I was trying to build something real. By stealing from your brother? Mom asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I wasn't stealing. I was borrowing against future success. The rental income from my legitimate properties would eventually justify the fees I was charging. Jessica shook her head. Miss Martinez, that's not how rental property law works. Unauthorized subletting is illegal regardless of your future intentions. Claiming non-existent income on loan applications is fraud regardless of your ultimate goals. Dad leaned forward in his chair. Sarah, how much money do you owe total? Sarah was quiet for a long moment. It's complicated. How much? He repeated firmly. About $120,000 across various credit cards and loans. The number hit our parents like a physical blow. Dad's face went pale, while Mom covered her mouth with her hands. $120,000? Dad repeated. How is that possible? I used the rental income claims to qualify for business credit lines and investment loans. I was planning to use the Boulder duplex income to pay everything down, but when that deal fell through, let me get this straight, I said, my anger finally surfacing. You've been stealing my money for 2 years, using my reliable payments as proof of income to rack up massive debts, and now you're facing financial ruin because your fraudulent scheme collapsed? I wasn't trying to hurt you, Freddie. I was trying to build something that would benefit our whole family eventually. By mocking my financial prospects while secretly stealing from me? By telling everyone I'll never own property while using my money to fund your fake empire? Sarah broke down completely, sobbing as the weight of her deceptions became undeniable. I'm sorry. I know I made mistakes, but I was trying to make everyone proud. You don't know what it's like being the daughter everyone expects to succeed, and you don't know what it's like being the son everyone expects to fail, I replied. The difference is, I responded to those expectations by working harder and building something real. You responded by lying and stealing. Dad stood up abruptly. I need some air. This is... He couldn't finish the sentence. As Dad stepped onto the back porch, Mom moved to comfort Sarah, who was now crying uncontrollably. Despite my anger, seeing my sister's complete breakdown was heartbreaking. She had created this situation through her own choices, but watching anyone's life implode was inherently painful. Sarah, I said more gently, I want to help you fix this legally. But first, you need to admit what you've done and commit to making things right. She looked up through her tears. What do you mean? Full restitution for the money you've stolen, honest disclosure of all fraudulent activities, cooperation with legal proceedings, and commitment to rebuilding your life without lies. I don't have $60,000 to pay you back. Then you'll work out a payment plan and stick to it. The important thing is acknowledging reality and committing to honest behavior going forward. Jessica added, Miss Martinez, cooperating with authorities and making restitution efforts could significantly reduce potential criminal penalties. Continued denial will only make things worse. Sarah nodded slowly, seeming to understand for the first time that her lies had finally caught up with her. The family dynamics that had shaped our relationships for years were about to change dramatically. But perhaps that change could ultimately be positive for everyone involved. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as we worked through the legal and financial implications of Sarah's fraud. But tonight, the truth was finally out, and we could begin the difficult process of rebuilding our family relationships on a foundation of honesty rather than deception. 1 month later, I stood in the living room of my new craftsman house in Highland, arranging furniture and marveling at how dramatically my life had changed. The morning sunlight streaming through original stained glass windows illuminated hardwood floors that I actually owned, in a home purchased with money I had earned through honest work and careful financial planning. The house closing had proceeded flawlessly the previous Friday, exactly as scheduled. Walking out of the title company with my keys had been one of the most satisfying moments of my adult life, representing years of disciplined saving and strategic planning finally coming to fruition. Sarah's situation had evolved as well, though in a very different direction. She had entered financial counseling and was working with a bankruptcy attorney to address her debt obligations legally. The criminal fraud investigation was ongoing, but her cooperation with authorities and commitment to restitution had helped minimize potential penalties. More importantly, Sarah was finally being honest about her mistakes and their consequences. She had taken a second job at a restaurant to supplement her income and was paying back family members she had deceived. The work was humbling for someone who had built her identity around real estate success, but it was also teaching her valuable lessons about earning money through legitimate effort. "The house looks incredible," Jessica said, arriving with coffee and pastries from our favorite bakery. "How does it feel to be a homeowner?" "Surreal," I admitted. "For so long I kept my success secret to avoid family drama. Now that everything's out in the open, it feels strange to actually enjoy what I've accomplished." "You deserve to enjoy it. You earned this house through years of hard work while your family was dismissing your potential." My parents had visited twice since I moved in, both times expressing amazement at what I had achieved, while they assumed I was struggling financially. Dad had been particularly affected by learning about my business success and substantial savings. "I owe you an apology," he had said during his first visit. "We spent years treating you like the family failure while you were quietly building something impressive. I should have supported your ambitions instead of dismissing them." Mom had been equally reflective about the family dynamics that had shaped our relationships. "We got so caught up in Sarah's apparent success that we stopped paying attention to what you were accomplishing. That was unfair to you and ultimately harmful to Sarah too." The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. Through the front window, I could see Sarah standing on my porch, holding what appeared to be a small gift bag. "Hi, Freddie," she said when I opened the door. "I hope it's okay that I stopped by. I brought you a housewarming gift." "Of course. Come in." Sarah looked around my living room with genuine admiration. "This place is beautiful. You have excellent taste in real estate." The comment might have been sarcastic from the old Sarah, but her tone was sincere. The past month had changed her dramatically, stripping away the arrogance and deception that had defined her personality for years. "Thank you. Would you like some coffee?" Jessica brought pastries from that bakery on 17th. "I'd like that." As we settled in the kitchen, Sarah handed me the gift bag. Inside was a small wooden sign that read, "Home is where the heart is," along with a handwritten card. "Freddie," the card read, "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want you to know how sorry I am for everything I did. Watching you succeed honestly while I built my life on lies has taught me more about character than I learned in 30 years before this. Thank you for helping me find a way to make things right. Your proud sister, Sarah." I set down the card, feeling unexpectedly emotional. "Sarah, I appreciate this more than you know. I owe you so much more than a card and a sign. $60,000 for starters, plus whatever damage my fraud might have caused your credit or reputation. We'll work out the money over time. What matters more is that you're being honest about what happened and committed to changing how you approach life. Jessica joined us in the kitchen, greeting Sarah with professional courtesy. Despite everything that had transpired, she had been supportive of Sarah's efforts to make restitution and rebuild her life legitimately. "How are the financial counseling sessions going?" Jessica asked. "Hard," Sarah replied honestly. "Learning to live within my actual means after years of fake prosperity is challenging, but also liberating in some ways. I don't have to maintain lies anymore, or worry about schemes falling apart." "What's your long-term plan?" I asked. "I'm going back to school for accounting. Ironic, I know, given my recent relationship with numbers, but I want to help other people manage money honestly, maybe prevent someone else from making my mistakes." We spent the next 2 hours talking about family relationships, financial responsibility, and the lessons we had learned from recent events. Sarah was genuinely different, humbled by consequences, but also motivated to build something real rather than something impressive. "I need to ask you something," Sarah said as she prepared to leave. "Why didn't you expose my fraud sooner? You could have stopped my schemes years ago, because I hoped you would eventually come clean on your own. Family loyalty made me want to believe your success was legitimate. And because I was scared of family conflict," I added honestly, "I kept my own success secret for the same reason. I didn't want to deal with jealousy or resentment or complicated dynamics." Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "We both let fear drive our choices. I was afraid of not being successful enough, so I created fake success. You were afraid of being too successful, so you hid real success. But hiding the truth never works long-term," Jessica observed. "Eventually, reality emerges, and the longer you wait, the more painful that emergence becomes." As Sarah left, she hugged me with genuine warmth for the first time in years. "I'm proud of you, Freddie. You built something real while I was building something fake. That takes character I didn't have." "You're building character now," I replied. "That's what matters going forward." That evening, as Jessica and I cooked dinner in my new kitchen, I reflected on the lessons learned through this difficult family crisis. Success built on honest work and careful planning provided satisfaction that no amount of stolen money or fraudulent achievements could match. Family relationships based on truth and mutual respect were worth more than maintaining comfortable lies. Most importantly, I had learned that hiding your light to avoid conflict ultimately serves no one well. My secrecy about business success had enabled Sarah's fraud while depriving my parents of opportunities to support my actual accomplishments. Honesty, even when difficult, created possibilities for genuine relationships and mutual growth. "What are you thinking about?" Jessica asked, noticing my contemplative mood. How much time I wasted being afraid of my family's reactions to my success. If I had been honest about my business earlier, maybe Sarah wouldn't have felt pressure to create fake achievements. "You can't take responsibility for Sarah's choices," Jessica reminded me. "She decided to lie and steal. Those were her decisions, not consequences of your secrecy." "True. But going forward, I want to be open about what I'm building and proud of what I've accomplished. No more hiding success to avoid family drama." As we finished dinner, I thought about my business projections for the coming year. My client base continued growing, and I was considering hiring additional developers to handle increased demand. The success I had built in secret was ready to become something even larger and more impactful. My phone buzzed with a text message from Dad. "Proud of you, son. Your mother and I are learning that real success takes time to recognize. We should have been paying better attention." I smiled and showed the message to Jessica. "Think there's hope for improved family dynamics?" "Definitely. Crisis often creates opportunities for growth, and your family is finally seeing each other clearly." Later that night, as I settled into my new home office to work on client projects, I felt profound gratitude for the journey that had brought me here. The path hadn't been easy, involving years of hiding my accomplishments while enduring family dismissal and criticism. But adversity had motivated me to work harder, save more, and build something genuinely impressive. Sarah's fraud had been painful and expensive, but it had also forced our family to confront long-standing patterns of favoritism and assumption. Now we could begin building relationships based on who we actually were, rather than who we appeared to be. The craftsman house around me represented more than just home ownership. It symbolized the victory of persistence over doubt, honest work over fraudulent shortcuts, and authentic relationships over comfortable lies. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities, but tonight I was exactly where I belonged, in a home I had earned, surrounded by people who valued honesty, building a future based on genuine accomplishments rather than stolen success. Have you ever found yourself hiding your achievements to avoid family drama or workplace jealousy? Sometimes the fear of others' reactions can prevent us from fully embracing our own success. But as I learned, authentic relationships require authentic honesty about who we are and what we've accomplished. I'd love to hear your thoughts about balancing family loyalty with personal honesty. Have you ever discovered that someone close to you wasn't who you thought they were? How did you handle the situation? Please share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button to help others find it. Consider subscribing for more stories about family dynamics, financial independence, and finding the courage to live authentically. And don't forget to share this with someone who might need encouragement to pursue their own dreams despite others' expectations. Thank you for joining me on this journey of discovery and growth. Remember that your worth isn't determined by others' opinions, and sometimes the greatest gift you can give your family is the truth about who you really are. Until next time, keep building something real and never apologize for your legitimate success.